Hey everybody, Dr. Green here. Today I'm going to give you a brief overview of what's going on with Module 5 Apache Spark. You'll see we have our typical overview and to-do. We have various readings. The first one is the academic paper on Spark. We read academic papers in this course because the latest and greatest in big data, data science, and data analytics typically comes out in the form of academic papers, whether it's from universities or companies like Google or AWS. So you need to learn how to read these. We have 2 chapters to annotate from our textbook, and we also have 2 wonderful videos. You will find these videos are in perusal, so you'll be able to mark up and ask questions and annotate them as you go as well. This will walk you through the fundamentals of Apache Spark, as well as giving you a tutorial on how to use Python with Spark, which is what we will be doing in this course. I've also included a resources section with various links that will take you to various different resources. Everything from the Apache Spark website. You'll see right here, I clicked the wrong thing. The Apache Spark website, which is really excellent, has excellent examples, has excellent documentation, and I would expect you to reference this often. Make sure you read through the quick start and RDDs and slowly go on as we move on as well. So there's various resources you can hear as well. I've also included some information on MR job, MapReduce job, and you can use that with Apache Spark as well if you feel more comfortable with that. The big thing that you will get through this week that you'll be curious about is the reflection. In the reflection, we are going to reproduce a portion of the video you watched. We are going to get some data. We're going to reproduce that using a Jupyter notebook inside of Docker. Jupyter notebook, for those of you who don't know, is a very common method of designing, developing, testing, debugging Python scripts all across data science, data analytics, all over in general. It's really nice to work with. And we're going to go ahead and use it from inside Docker to develop locally on our computer. So this should be really nice. It should hopefully work really well for you. The second method we're going to look at is using the Bgsu Hadoop cluster. For the moment, do not use Jupyter notebooks on this cluster. We are in the process of setting up Jupyter Hub, so you can do that as well, but it's not quite yet complete. So we are going to build one Jupyter notebook locally using our Jupyter Docker stacks, and we are going to use one Python file that we'll build on our cluster. So you're going to be asking, how do I use these? So you'll see there's a nice command here that tells you how to run this Jupyter notebook inside the Docker stacks. So we want to do docker run --rm. That means remove the container when I'm done using it. You can run this with or without the -d. That means run in daemon mode in the background. -p maps our port, so Jupyter Notebooks runs on port 8888. We have to map that port just like we've previously done in Docker Compose files. -v is going to map a volume. Here I'm going to use pwd. This has to map to /home jovan/work, so that's important. You can substitute any directory you want for pwd, and the Docker container we're using is Jupyter/all-spark/notebook. Okay, so let me show you how this works. You'll see I am in my own directory here with lots of information. I can go ahead and run this command right here. Now you'll see that I've actually taken out the -d. Many of you may want to do this. It may make life a little easier for you, but I will show you how to do it with that command as well. So we'll add the -d back in, and you'll see it starts running, and you're like, great, what do I do next? Open up your Docker dashboard. If you are on Windows, this is in your system tray, typically in the bottom right. Go ahead and open your dashboard. And what you should do is you should have access to an image that's running. You'll see here, Docker gives it a nice random name. We can go in here and you want to look for these last 2 lines. It says, or copy and paste one of these URLs. You want to copy and paste everything starting with the :888. So :888/ and all this token. And then you can go over to your browser, type in localhost, and paste. You'll see how that looks there. And this will bring me straight to this. This is a Jupyter notebook. I can click work, and hey, this is all of my information that was in my directory as well. You'll see this is the same information that was there. I already have a Jupyter notebook in here that I was working on briefly to show you how this all works. So you'll see this is actually nice and wonderful. It brings it up. We can type Python in here. Each one of these cells gives us something new to work with. When I'm in the cell, if I press Shift and Enter, it runs the cell, and it shows me this nice little star to tell me it's running it. I'm already have these things in here, so I'm importing Find Spark and doing the init. I'm importing Spark session from pyspark.sql, building my session, and you can see I can read my file, get my columns, all these kind of things. I just hit Shift and Enter. Sometimes it's a little slow, that's okay. You also see if I make a mistake, it tells me right in line. So it's a really nice and easy way to do debugging when I'm working with Spark and working with Python. So I want you to go ahead and work through this whole example that they did in the video. See what you can do, use the data that's specified in the document. You'll learn more about Jupyter Notebooks as you go, and part of the best way to do that is just to mess around and to play. Just remember for now, in each one of these cells, we type some Python code, and then we hit Shift and Enter to run it. Once we do that, it gives us the output immediately. Anything I do or create in a cell is available in all the other cells, by the way. So it is persistent, and it lets you do some nice things. Anytime you close this, it'll ask you to leave page. You can go back. You can change things. I can go to Untitled here, and I can change the name. My Spark Example Notebook. Okay? Everything should be available that you need. Everything should be good here. And you can also go through and you can do some of the other Spark examples from the Apache Spark website. So if you go here, you can go through the documentation and the examples. Let's go back to the examples actually. And you can do anything you want here. You can find a nice file. You can do this. Just like this, we'll copy this Python for pi estimation. I'll hit the plus sign to add a new cell. I can do this here. You'll see that we've defined a function. It does random, sc parallelize, doing this. Oh, name sc is not defined. Well, what does that mean? That means my Spark context is not defined. So we would have to go back and we would have to figure out, well, how do we create a Spark context? Hopefully you have looked at the other videos and the other examples, and you would go through here and you would say, oh, I can do Spark context, or you would do this and you would say Spark context. You could go ahead and search for it. Oh, it brings up a Spark context. This gives you all the documentation. This may not be exactly what you want. You may be saying, well, hey, that doesn't help me. It just gives me this. Hey, here's tutorials point. It gives me some explanation. I bet they give me an example somewhere. Oh, here we go. So from PySpark, import Spark context. This is great. Let's go in here. We'll paste it. Okay. Sure, we'll do that. Uh-oh, more errors. Cannot run multiple Spark contexts as one. Okay, so we'll take a cue from what we saw up here. Oh, get or create. Let's see, let's see if it's on this page. It's not. But if I go back to my actual documentation, you will see that there is a get or create function that does the same thing. It either gets or creates the necessary Spark context for you to do your work. So we should be able to do this. Let's see what happens here. Uh-oh, it's still yelling at me. Cannot run multiple Spark contests in one existing Spark context. Get app master created by get or create at this. So we're saying get or create. Let's go take a look at our documentation one more time. This function may be used to get or instantiate a Spark context. This method allows not passing a Spark conf. Okay, cannot be used to create multiple Spark contexts. Okay, so we get or create, we have a Spark session. So let's go through and do a little bit more debugging just to work on this. Spark session in memory, Spark context. Okay, so let's look up Spark session next to see what we can do here. Hey, I have a Spark section, get or create. Let's see, normally there's things in here that would start with the word get. Get or create, get active session returns the active Spark session. We're not interested in that. We're interested in the Spark context. So let's see if we can do that. Oh, .spark context. That would probably work for me. So let's jump back in here. We will do, go ahead and comment this out. We'll do this. And we will say spark.spark context. Spark session has no attribute Spark context. Well, let's see what it's actually asking for me here. That's because I miscapitalized it. So we're going to go in and we are going to put a capital C. Hey, Spark context is not a callable object. Num samples is not defined. Okay, new error now. Num samples. So let's make this easy on ourselves. Num samples is not defined equals 1000. Hey, we finally did it, and now there's another error. It's coming up. It's upset about something. Let's see what the error is. Name error. Random is not defined. Okay, so import random as random. Okay, let's see. SC parallelize filter this num samples random.random. Okay, let's see if we can have some luck there. There we go. We have done it. We have put an example in here. Now I want you to note all the debugging I did to go through this. I had some errors, I copied this over, and I sort of worked through this logically and slowly, looking for relationships, searching for examples, searching for answers. So this is an important part of the process to work through. Okay? So this is how we do this locally. Now you do remember that when I was back here I did this with the -D flag. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to close this out, I'm going to tell it leave my page, that's fine, it should save everything. I am going to go ahead, so this is here. The easiest way I think for you to stop this will be to go back to your dashboard. You can go in here, you can click stop, hey, and it is gone. Now if you run this without the -D, you will see that it just runs inside your terminal or PowerShell or console. So no problem there. Oops, -P, we want to keep that. We want to get rid of the -D. And you'll see all this information is just here in your console. So when you're done, you hit Control-C and it exits. Okay? So this is lovely. We're working through all this. We can do our Jupyter notebook, but now we want to do an actual Python file. Hey, so the next way that we can do this is by accessing our Bgsu cluster. Now, if you'll remember, there is a page in our Canvas shell that tells us how to do this. I'm going to go ahead and remove this last thing for port forwarding. We don't really quite need that right yet. But I'm going to use SSH. I'm going to use my username greenr with that, and I'm going to connect to port 22022. Now, you can do this using PuTTY as well, in Windows, which gives you a nice graphical interface to do this, and you'll be in good shape. So we can do this. Go ahead and enter your password, and we're here, and now we can do wonderful things like start PySpark. Right? So we can do PySpark, we can do everything that we saw in the videos from PySpark. This is a wonderful place to run this. So you'll see it takes a second. We can do everything here, right? So you can do all this kind of stuff, right? I didn't fill out all of the parameters here. So you can do all these things. You will be able to mimic the video and do things quite well, right? There's the autocomplete, all that. You just type quit and hit enter to leave. The other thing that we can do is we can go ahead and use our Spark submit function. You'll see that I can just type in Spark submit. There's the directory with the examples. In this case, I'm going to run Py, right? And you'll see, hey, it's running Py. Let's see what happens here. It looks like it's running in cluster mode. Pi is roughly 3.1545080. Okay, so you will actually see there is that example. If you want to see the code that's going on, if you want to dig into that, you should just be able to do vim or vi or nano, and you will see that it actually, you can walk through this code, see exactly how this all works and how the parallelization works. There are other examples to run. Okay. One of the other examples we could run is this one. Right here, it does a word count on book.txt. Book.txt does have to be stored in HDFS for this to work, which I already did. So you'll see it's going to go through this. It's going to do the whole thing. It's going to calculate the word counts. Right, it does the whole deal here. There's all my word counts. So we're in good shape. You'll also see that you can change how all of this works by using the deploy mode attribute or command line switch, and you can always say cluster, which will make sure that it runs in the cluster across everything. You can also run it using local and use some controls there. You can always look through the documentation if you want more details on these basic things. As we go deeper in the course, we'll expand on some of these. But for now, I hope this has given you some good background and some good context, and we will see you next time online.